Hello and assalamu alaikum, everyone. A very warm welcome to the Advanced Audit and Assurance Webinars to Success for June 2024 exams. And I am your tutor, Kashif Kamran. Today is the day 3 of this webinar, and the focus of the day 3 is on another technique, is on another element of success, that is techniques to success. Already in the previous 2 days of this webinar, we have focused on the approach to success as well as the grasp to success. And today in this particular webinar, we are looking at the third dimension of success, which you can see in the red, which is to look at the techniques to success. And finally, on the fourth day tomorrow, it's about inspiration to success, giving you the right motivation to how you can convert your challenges to success. So let's open the day 3. Let's look at the techniques to success, which can be helpful to you in enabling you to success. Okay, let's start on with techniques to success. Techniques are an essential part of your success in AAA, even if you have a good grasp on the syllabus. A lot of time the students is technically sound. They know the syllabus well, but they're struggling with exam techniques, which results in failure. So you need to know the right exam techniques today, along with the grasp on the syllabus you got to know yesterday, and your approach to how you are preparing yourself for the June 24 exams on the day 1, and they all should go together if you want to convert your results into a successful status. Exam techniques to success can be divided into 2 parts. Exam techniques before the day of exam, which is from now up till the day of exam, and exam techniques on the day of exam. So I will be discussing with you both types of exam techniques, which you should implement from today up to the day of your exam, and the one which you will be implementing during the exam, 195 minutes of your exam time. So let's open this discussion and let's start to discuss the exam techniques before the day of exam. So let's start with this agenda. What should you do before the day of exam? What sort of exam techniques you should be polishing in the next 3 weeks you have ahead of your June 24 exams? First of all, be aware of the changes in question number 1. All of you, particularly the students who are not enrolled under a tutor, I'm not worried about the students enrolled under a tutor. I'm worried about the students who are not enrolled under a college, under an institution, under a tutor, and they're doing a self-study. Are you aware of the changes which came in question number 1? And these changes came in question number 1 since September 2022 exams. And you need to be aware of it, because otherwise you might not be demonstrating the rigor which is needed in the question number 1 in the June 2024 exams. So exam techniques before the exam day. Be aware of the changes in question 1 since September 22 exams and ensure you are well versed with it. Changes include, I'm giving you a summary of the changes, the way the materiality is determined and commented on. You know, since September 22 exam, in the partner email of the question number 1, the partner will tell you on which factor you should determine the materiality. And then on that particular factor, you need to determine the materiality. You need to justify what should be the ideal materiality level for the audit you are performing, and you need to justify that. So you will be calculating. For example, the partner tells you in the email that I want materiality to be based on profit before tax. So you will calculate the materiality on the basis of profit before tax at the ranges 5 to 10%. You will say at 5%, it is this much. At 10%, it is this much. And then you will justify whether you will take 5% of the profit as materiality, 6% of the profit as materiality, 7% of the profit as materiality, 8%, 9%, 10%, and you will justify why. So suppose you calculate a materiality on profit at 5% and at 10%. At 5%, it comes like $100,000. At 10%, it comes as like $200,000, for example. Now you have a range of materiality from $100,000 to $200,000. And now you will justify that which one will you choose? Will you choose 100,000, 200,000, or will you choose something in the middle, like $150,000 or $125,000? And what is the justification of that? If you're choosing 100, why? If you're choosing 200, why? If you're choosing something in the middle, why? And that justification is what the examining team is looking for. There are 3 marks for determining the materiality, and there are 3 technical marks for determining the materialities. And these technical marks will be deducted from the marks allocated for audit risk or risk of material misstatement. So if you have a 15 marks question on audit risk, from that 15 marks, 3 marks will be deducted for determining and commenting on the new style of materiality, which is applicable since September 2022 exams. So please ensure you are familiar with the way the materiality is determined and commented on. Please visit the examining team answers since September 22 onwards, only for the self-study student. Because if you're enrolled under a tutor, you already know about this. So any self-study students taking this webinar, are you clear with this? Are you familiar with this? And if you are not, please make sure that you visit some of the examining team answers since September 22. Look at the answer for question number 1. See how the materiality is determined and commented on. Don't look at the length of the answer. Just look at the way to determine it. Number 2, giving conclusion of how you prioritize the significant audit risk or the risk of material misstatement. Bracket, justification of your choice of prioritization. If I am solving a question on audit risk, because since September 22 exam, the examining team asks you to evaluate and prioritize the significant audit risk, or evaluate and prioritize the significant risk of material misstatement. Now, there can be hundreds of ways in which you prioritize the audit risk. You can take them in the order of materiality from the highest to lowest. You can take them in the order of the case study. You can take them haphazardly. But in the conclusion, you need to justify that which of the 5 risks you wrote above are more important ones. So suppose out of the 5, you tell these 3 are important and why? Or out of the 5, you tell these 2 are important and why? So you need to justify the most important prioritized risk from the risk you wrote above. So giving a conclusion for an audit risk or a risk of material misstatement is important, because in the conclusion, examining team is looking for your basis of prioritization of risk. Any basis, they're just looking for the basis. So you can have any basis, but please do give that basis of prioritization in the conclusion. So to me, which 2 risks out of the 5 are important? To you, which 2 risks are important out of the 5? We can have our own justifications. It's not necessarily my answer should match with your answer or the examining team answer. Number 2, so giving conclusions is something very, very important. Please evaluate the examining team answer. Self-study students, please ensure you do that. Is everyone clear with the number 1 and number 2 so far? Quick answers before I proceed further. Great. And please evaluate an examining team answer if you are a self-study student, because if you are taking classes from me or any other tutor, you must be knowing about it. Number 3, the different ways in which audit risk or risk of material misstatement question can be tested since September 22 exam. There is no one way in which a risk question can be asked. The only one way we know is evaluate and prioritize the significant audit risk, or evaluate and prioritize the significant risk of material misstatement. This is a very common way of asking a question, and this still exists. But are there other ways in which the examining team can ask you an audit risk question or a risk of material misstatement question? Yes. For that, you need to read the article, which was published a couple of months ago, where examining team wrote an article approaching Section A question. And in this article, approaching Section A question, the examining team guided you about the possible ways in which a risk question could be formulated in the future exams. And already we have seen that in the March 24 exams, and in the December 23 exams. Let's give you a guidance on that. Just let's spend few minutes on how audit or risk of material misstatement question can be tested in different ways. No need to give any justification or any conclusion for business risk, right, Jessica? Okay. If I just take you to the examining team articles, I hope you can see the technical articles in front of your screens now. Please confirm that. Just need to show you the article where the examining team is talking about the different ways in which audit risk and risk of material misstatement question can come in. Okay, thank you so much, Ellen, for that confirmation. You scroll down and you come to the syllabus area D. Syllabus area D, and you can see this very first question, approach to section A question. You click on this and you open it up. Approaching section A question. And in this article, the examining team is telling us that how the risk question could be asked in future exam settings. Can you see this heading over here? Assessment of risk style. So in this particular heading, the examining team is telling you how the question can be formulated. And they have already formulated the question that way in December 23 and March 24. Tell me, you're all very familiar with the type of question like this. Evaluate and prioritize the risk of material misstatements. You're familiar with this question? So you will read the case study, and from the case study, you will identify the risk of material misstatement. You will explain them up. And in the conclusion, you will give a justification that out of the risk you wrote above, which are the more important ones, right? So this is a very typical one. Look at this. Examining team can ask you a question like this. Justify why goodwill has been identified as a significant risk of material misstatement. So you're reading a partner email and the partner tells you that I have picked goodwill as an important risk. An examining team is asking you, justify why partner has picked a goodwill as an important risk. So you need to give the justification. It could be that there is some complexity in goodwill. There could be that goodwill is recognized for the first time. It could be that it is material to the financial statement. There could be some issues with the accounting treatment of the goodwill. That is the reason the partner has considered it as important. So there could be something special around goodwill in the case study. And you have to pick that special characteristics from the case study about goodwill to justify why this has been considered as a significant risk of material misstatement. Is that clear to all of you? Okay. Then you move down and look at this. This came in the March 24 exams, that examining team, rather than asking you to evaluate and prioritize the significant audit risk, and you go and read the case study and you start to identify the audit risk from the case study, examining team is giving you a different approach. They're saving your time. They're giving you a list of significant risk, ABC. I think in the March 24 exam, they gave like 4 of them. So they gave you 4 risks, that these are 4 important risks. So they're saving your time. Now, what you just need to do is you need to justify why each of the following has been identified as significant risk. So you know goodwill is a risk, inventory is a risk, non-current asset is a risk. So you will go to the case study, you will look at the paragraph of non-current asset, you will look at the paragraph of inventory, you will look at the paragraph of goodwill, and you will see what is so special with goodwill, which is making it a significant risk. What is so special with inventory, which is making it a significant risk, right? Yes, Ida, we will still write the opening paragraph of materiality. We will still write the opening paragraph of materiality, because when you justify why goodwill, inventory, and non-current asset is a significant risk, what will be the first justification, Ida? What will be the first justification? The first justification will be materiality. So you need to do that. So materiality paragraph will not be omitted. Yes, I agree with you, Ida, that conclusion paragraph will be omitted, because already examining team has told you that these 3 are the most significant risks. So you are not giving any conclusion, because you already know these are the 3 most important risks. So yes, the conclusion paragraph can definitely be omitted, but not the materiality paragraph. So is everyone clear with the type of question, this one on the screen? Because this one came in the March 24 exam. So we can expect examining team to continue that in the June 24 exam as well. So please ensure you read through this article approaching the section A question. And the self-study students who are unfamiliar with the changes, can you see this particular article here? Exam technique on business risk and exam technique on risk of material misstatement and audit risk. I recommended these as top 16 articles on the day one. So click and read these articles because this will tell you how you give a justification of the materiality, how you define, how you conclude on the prioritized risk. So any student who is struggling to write a conclusion paragraph or justify the materiality paragraph, please ensure you do read this particular article on risk of material misstatement and audit risk. You will get those exam techniques right from here. Is that clear? So please ensure you are familiar with the changes, primarily the self-study students who are utilizing the free resources and are not under a mentorship of any college or any tutor. So the way the materiality is determined and commenting on, giving a conclusion at the end of the audit risk and ROM, and the different ways in which audit risk or ROM question could be established in the future exams, please ensure you read through the article approaching section A question. And many thanks, Ida, for that question, because that question must have given a lot of clarity to other students. Okay, moving further. Exam techniques before the day of exam. Even in section B, at times since September 22 exams, the materiality is given. For example, you're reading a question 2 or question 3. And in the opening paragraph, the examining team tells you that materiality for the client has been determined at $400,000. Now, you're not calculating the materiality because examining team has given you the threshold of materiality. Anything above this is material. Anything below this is immaterial. So examining team is saving your time and telling you this is the threshold of materiality. So we even saw these practices since September 22 in some of these section B questions, not all of them. So please be very careful about the opening paragraph. You could be given a threshold of materiality even in section B, which you can utilize for determining whether something is material or not. So in the case, you just need to use the threshold to judge whether something is material or not. If this is not the case, examining team is not giving you a threshold of $400,000 or something like that in the section B, then in section B, you will still use the old techniques to determine whether an item is material or not. And I hope you know the old techniques. You determine whether something is material or not by taking by dividing that item with the total assets, by dividing that item with revenue, and by dividing that item with profit before tax if the numbers are given. And you get to know whether an item is material or not to the total assets, revenue, or profit. It's not necessarily that all three of them are given in the exam paper. Sometimes even one is given, sometimes two are given, and sometimes three are given. So you can divide them by all two, all three, or one just to ensure whether the item is material or not. So is everyone familiar with the two styles of materialities? Either a threshold will be given, or you will still use the old techniques to determine the materiality in question 2, 3. Is this clear to all of you? The slide in front of your screen? Okay, great. So please ensure you are aware of these changes. Okay, moving on. Practice with examiner report. It's not just about the changes which came in question 1. The second exam technique before the day of exam is to practice with examiner report. I'm very critical of this as a tutor, always. I believe examining examiner reports is the most important resource which is on my table. I don't like examining team answers, and I'll discuss that broadly. I like examiner reports, and I'll tell you why. And what benefit can you get from an examiner report if you practice? How many papers I told you to practice on the day 1? How many papers I told you to practice on day 1? 11. Out of the 11, 1 is the mock exam. Leave it. For mock exam, you will never get the examiner report. Okay. 3 were the specimen exams. For specimen exams, there are no examiner reports. So 3 specimen exam, 1 mock exam, no examiner reports. So 7 11 minus 4, we are left with 7. So 7 papers which are from 2021, 2022, and 2023 on the practice platform, right? For the 7 papers, will you get examiner reports? Yes. So will you get examiner reports of all the 7 papers ACC has published on the practice platform? Yes. Yes, you will not have examiner report of mock. You will have no examiner reports for the specimen exam. So how many examiner reports will you have? 7 of the recent exams. So can you practice with examiner reports 7 papers, all of you? And I'll show you how. But are you confirming the number 7? Are you getting the number 7 in your mind? And are you clear with the number 7? All of you? Right. So 7 papers with examiner reports. And I hope you know there are examiner reports available for each one of them. I'll show you the link of that as well, right? Now what to do? Practice with examiner report. How? First of all, you open a paper like December 22. You open it, you do it, you solve it as you solve a paper. And once you're solved with the paper, and what next you do is you open the examiner report for December 22 and you keep your answer with you on the screen. And you start reading the examiner criticism for the question number 1. You've already done the answer for question number 1 for December 22. In that examiner report, examining team will be telling you a lot of issues, a lot of problems the student did in the question number 1. See whether those problems and issues are in your answer. Examining team will appreciate a lot of good things the student did in the question number 1. See whether those positive things are in your answer. And examining team will also give you future advices. Learn from them. Each question, you will have an examining team report for question 1, question 2, question 3, December 22 exams. Evaluate your answers in light of the examiner report and mark yourself in terms of 3 colors. Let me demonstrate that. Red color. Understand the issues why student fail, what they do wrong. That's the first thing covered in the examiner report. The examining team will tell you why student fail, what they did wrong. Is that in your answer? Is that in your answer of December 22, which you have done as an example? Underline that in red in your answer and say, oh, this is the mistake I did. I will not do it in the next paper, June 23, I will be solving. Avoid those in answering your questions. You've already done December 22 answer. You got to know a mistake from the examiner report. When you do the March 23 answer or June 23 answer, you will not repeat this. So you learned it. Number 2, green. Understand the strengths of the stronger student. Examining team will tell you in the examiner report the strengths of the stronger students. See whether you got some of the strengths in your answer. Underline them in green. So that will give you a lot of positivity for the upcoming exams. And those greens will give you a lot of motivation that, yes, you are going on the right track because some of the things you wrote were appreciated by the examining team in the report. So the strengths, implement them into your answer. So next paper you do, repeat them. If there is a problem, avoid it. So red is to avoid, green is to implement. Last comes the blue. Understand the examiner advice for future exam. When you're reading through the examiner report, the examining team will give you certain advices that future candidates should do this. Future candidates should be aware of this. So whenever the examining team is talking about future, just underline that in blue. This is under advice for the future. Follow it seriously. So 3 things you need to do. You solve a question from December 22 exam. You open up the December 22 examiner report. You keep 3 pens with you, red, green, blue. And you start reading the examiner report and see the reds, the greens, and the blue, and try to get the message. The red is to avoid when you do the June 23 paper. The green is to implement once you do the June 23 paper, and the blue is to follow in the next exam sitting you're appearing for, the June 24. So will you do the paper practice 7 papers with examiner reports? with this red, green, and blue. You need to seriously take my words. It will make a remarkable improvement to your exam sitting for June 24. If you are aiming for 50s, you will get 74, 75, 76. If you're aiming at 60s, you will get 80s. You will be a world top if you do this. So many of my national winners and my world tops in past exam settings have used this approach. They've followed this approach seriously. I hope you will stick to it. So will all of you do this? Is it becoming understandable how to go about it? The way I illustrated it, is that clear to all of you? Any problem with my illustration? So you start with one paper and you evaluate the examiner report. The next paper you do, will the answer improve? Yes or no? The next paper you do, will the answer improve? The third paper you do, will the answer improve further? The fourth paper you do, will the answer improve further? The fifth paper, the sixth paper, the seventh paper. And then on that basis, the specimen exams, the mock exam, and then the real exam. Now tell me, in the real exam, how good answer will you be writing? Because you know the things to avoid, you know the things to implement, and you know the things to follow. So red, green, blue. So I hope you follow this exam technique from today until your day of exam. Next, time management. I think there was a student asking me this yesterday, and I told the student that I'll do it tomorrow. That is on the day 3. Because this is one of the biggest challenge in AAA paper. And so many students leave the paper incomplete. That's very bad. I mean, there are certain underlying issues with that. And I want to address that over the next 10 minutes, that what best you can do to ensure you getting to that 90% plus paper coverage, if not 100. I've always guided about the time management before even. You must have seen my YouTube videos on time management. So I'm doing nothing new today, but I will try to reinforce the message. So at least it gets to your mind and you start to implement it. Practice for time management is another exam technique. Know the time management. Know the time management. Follow, stick to it. You should know what is the time management for every question. You should know how much minutes I have every mark. Follow it, stick to it. A lot of times the students are unaware of the time management. They're unaware of how much time should I give to the question number 1, 2, and 3. And that is the problem, that you result in just completing 60 to 70% of the paper. Attempt at least the 11 questions, including the June 24 mock, as guided on the day 1 under the time boundaries to Excel. I'll be showing you the time boundaries, but do the practice of all the 11 papers under time boundaries. Keep a timer, set the timer, 195 minutes, set the timer. On your smartwatch, on your phone, on your alarm clock, set 195 minutes timer. Keep it on the table, start doing the paper. 195 minutes end, stop. Evaluate where you ended. 60%, 65%. Good. Do the next paper next day. Set the timer. Start doing your paper. The timer ends, stop. How much you did? 67%, 68%. The next paper, the next paper, the next paper, and you're moving on. Probably till the time you reach the 11th paper, you might have started from 65 or 64 or 63, and you might be ending down somewhere around 80, 85%, which is phenomenal, which is great. Because the speed at home and the speed on the day of exam is very different. On the day of exam, you are in a do or die situation. At home, you are not in a do or die situation. Even though you try to simulate the exam environment at home, but it's still not the real exam environment. So the real exam environment and the panic of the real exam environment, and knowing that I have to do all in 195 minutes, your typing speed, your writing speed will improve upon. So is that becoming clear? doing every question under a limit and where the time ends, stop. Evaluate how much percentage of paper have you completed. And this will improve with every passing paper. Not doing practice with time at home and going to your exam hall, seriously, this is a failure. Right? So try to stick to the time management, which I will be guiding you now. Try to ensure you keep a timer on the table and start writing your answer and stop when the time ends and write time ends here. See what percentage of the paper you completed. This will really give you a ray of hope of completing 90% plus paper on the day of exam. Now, what is the time management which you need to follow? You have 195 minutes in the AAA paper, right? And you need to attack 100 marks paper, which includes the professional marks. We're not bifurcating technical and professional marks for the sake of simplicity. We're taking something very simple here, 195 minutes and 100 marks. So that means, as simple as that, we have 1.95 minutes per mark to make an impression to the marker. Implement this 1.95 minutes per mark to the total paper, allocating reading and planning time and the writing time. So this 1.95 minutes per mark includes the reading and planning time and the writing time. How would you allocate it to the whole paper? Look at this. The question number one, the total time you have for the question number one, you can see the red line, total time. I multiplied 50 with 1.95. Question number two, 48.75. Question three, 48.75. You can round them up. You can say, okay, 49, 49. You can say 97. This is the total time you have for each question. Then under that, you can see the breakdown. Of this 97.5 minutes, I have 24 minutes to read and plan and 73 minutes to write. For the question number 2 and 3, I have 12 minutes to read and plan and 37 minutes approx to write. This is the time management you need to apply on 11 papers you are doing before your day of exam. You will improve upon. But I always tell my student, try to do your best in 97.5 minutes for the question number 1. I'll come to this later in my session today, that you need to stop at 97.5 minutes and move on. Students are very bad into it, right? They never stop. They keep writing. Every question has to be done within a time where the time ends, stop, move to the next question. So will all of you follow this time management in front of your screen? Please confirm me before I move on. So please implement this time management. Please ensure you follow this time management over the 11 papers. This will bring a remarkable improvement on the day of your actual exams. Thank you. Next, exam technique before the day of exam. Stop idealizing examiner answers. Now, you must be amazed that the tutor is telling us stop idealizing the examiner answer. We love examiner answer, don't we? Tell me. You all love examiner answers. Am I right? We do, right? Definitely. Yes. And how many of you idealize examiner answers? Honestly, tell me. How many of you idealize examiner answers? Simply say yes, no. Okay. Be honest, right? Be honest. Okay, that's great. Okay, now what's my perspective on stop idealizing the examiner answer? Why am I stopping you? Let's see why. Because I need to justify everything. That's what you need to do in the exam paper. If you write something, justify it, you get marks. If you explain something, justify it, you get marks. You write a conclusion, justify. You give materiality, justify. Justification is what is the marking team looking for. So let's do the justification. Stop idealizing the examiner answers. Examiner answers, first of all, are tutorial guidance, right? You need to agree to that. A lot of time, the examining team mention in the note, this is a tutorial guidance. You don't read that. Tutorial guidance means what? It is a guidance for me and you, that this is what all could have been written. But examining team is not saying this is what all could have been written in 195 minutes. They are saying this is all the possibilities within the case study. But how much you need to write? As per the marking scheme. Examining team will always write more and lengthy because they're giving guidance to me and you to learn. They say this is a tutorial guidance, but you assume that this is the way of passing the AAA paper. Contain all points which could have been developed. So examining team will tell you all possible points which could have been developed. Suppose you're writing an audit risk answer and the audit risk answer is for 15 marks, right? So if it is a 15 marks audit risk answer, minus 3 marks for materiality, how many marks are we left with? 12. 12 divided by 3 because every audit risk is worth 3 marks. So ideally, how many audit risks are we writing? 4. There could be certain 2 marks audit risk. We're not going into that complexity currently. So from the 15 marks we have for audit risk, 3 marks are minus for the materiality we discussed in the session today. 12 divided by 3 and 4 audit risk. You look at the examiner answer. Examiner answer will have 8 to 9 audit risks because the examining team is telling you these are all possible audit risks which were in the scenario. You could have written any 4 of them. But you think that we have to write 9. That's the first mistake. Is everyone clear with the point number 1 and 2? I'm trying to emphasize that why you should stop idealizing the examiner answer because you tried taking the wrong message from it, not the right message. Number 3, are lengthy. As examiner try to justify every aspect for the sake of learning. Have you looked at the accounting treatment the examiner writes in the answer? He tries to guide you on the possibility. He tries to tell you, okay, for example, if it is a probable outflow, this is what to be done. If it is a possible outflow, this is what is to be done. In the exam, I'll take my time-saving technique. I'll assume, is it a possible outflow? And I'll write my answer. I'll assume, is it a probable outflow? I'll write my answer. But examining team will tell you all about ICE 37. Examining team tries to justify every aspect around that accounting standard. Just to give you a knowledge, you can learn accounting standards from examining answers. I even recommended that on the day 1. But you cannot write that long accounting treatments in exam paper. So stop idealizing the examiner answer. You can learn from them, but you cannot replicate them. If you're replicating the examiner answer, that is wrong. Number 4th, even examiner mention number and title of the accounting standard and auditing standard in the exam. You see examiner answers. Do you found examiner giving the name and the number of the accounting standard and the auditing standard? Do they or not? When you read examiner answers, do they have given accounting standard names and numbers? Yes. But the examining team tells in the examiner report, which you don't read. In the examiner report, the examining team tells there is no marks, no credit for naming the ISA or the IFRS. So look at the solution. Examiner report is a refined document for you what to do. Examiner answers is a guidance about the all outcomes, all possible outcomes in a 100 marks paper. You can learn from them. Is examiner answer a learning source? Yes. But is examiner answer a source to replicate? Never. That's great. That's great. Thank you so much for that feedback, Mamuriti. So now tell me, is examining team answer a learning source? Yes or no? Can you learn? No, can you learn something from it, like accounting treatments? But can you replicate it? Can you idealize it? Can you say, okay, examining team writes 6 lines on an accounting treatment, I write 6 lines. Examining team writes 9 audit risk, I'll write 9 audit risk. But you can learn, right? Learn and then change, summarize it, squeeze it in your own words, right? So is my perspective clear? Stop idealizing examining team answers because the student loves it. I don't know why. So I'm just telling you that you might run into troubles if you start replicating and idealizing examiner answers. You might not even complete 50% of your exam paper for June 24. So examiner reports, do 7 papers with examiner report, not with examiner answer. You are stuck somewhere, go and see the examiner answer. Try to understand what the examiner is writing and why. But don't just get impressed with the length of the answer. Just learn something and squeeze it, summarize it in your answer. I hope that's clear to all of you. Because this is the biggest myth with students, right? Idealizing examining team answers. You will never complete your exam and you will fail if you idealize the examiner answer. So I hope you will take it as a danger sign for the next 27 days now. The next exam tip, case-specific answers. Students write a lot of journal answer in AAA. I don't know why. Uh, they rote learn from the past papers. They imagine that if a group audit comes in the exam paper in the question number 1, we'll write about a goodwill risk, we'll write about a foreign currency risk, we'll write about we'll write about the intercompany balances risk. They learn certain risk in group situations. And even though that is not mentioned in the case study, they will see, okay, this is ABC group, and they will start writing those risks, whether they are present in the case or not. Examining team is so unhappy with students rote learning risk from the prior papers, and they just try to force them in the answer, even though they're not been asked for. Try to read the case study. Try to read what examining team is telling you in the case study. The more you indulge in the case study, the more you involve in case study, the more you absorb the case study, the better you are. Don't take any rote learn stuff to exam paper because all you need is the understanding of the requirements. All you need is to relate the requirements with the information given in the case study. Try to extract your answer and write a very impressive answer within 195 minutes. Case specific answers. You need to tailor your answer to the case. Tailor. Absorb the case in your answer. Absorb. Look at these words. Absorb. Tailor. Take sound judgments within the case. Exercise judgments within the case. Materiality is one example. Choose the materiality level in the question number 1 by exercising judgment within the case. Is it a first-year audit within the case? Is it a recurring audit within the case? If it is is it a recurring audit, but still there are number of risk? So even though it's a recurring audit, I might increase my materiality level. But because there are number of risks, I need to be very careful. Exercise judgment within the context of the case. You cannot have a rote learning and going to exam hall. Okay, first year audit, I'll take the lowest level of materiality. Recurring audit, I'll take the highest level of materiality. No, rote learning is useless in AAA paper. Take sound judgments. Right actions or safeguards best suited to the case. You got an ethical dilemma in your exam. For that ethical dilemma, when you're explaining why it is an ethical dilemma, what is the threat in that ethical dilemma, try to find what is the best course of action to overcome it. That best course of action might not be in the Kaplan and BPP book. That best course of action is in the context of the case study. So try writing actions and safeguards which are best suited to the problem you have identified in the exam paper. Develop procedures from within the information given in the case. If you're writing procedures on goodwill, goodwill is a paragraph in the exam paper. If you're writing procedures on inventory, inventory is a paragraph in the exam paper. If you're writing procedures on non-current assets, non-current assets is a paragraph in the exam paper. Try to read that. Try to see what is so specific about the non-current asset, what sort of procedures I need to make around that specific information given to me by the examiner. You cannot just go into the exam hall, rote learning procedures on non-current assets, inventory, and goodwill, even though they've come in the past papers. Because each time the scenario of goodwill will be different. Some characteristics could be common. So it's about case-specific answer. Don't journalize things. Don't rote learn things. Student, do the revision kit. Student, learn revision kit. I don't know how. It's the most difficult task to learn something. You learn it. You say, okay, group comes, I'll do this. IS 21 comes, I'll do this. IS 24 comes, I'll do this. The moment you see the word related party, you say no disclosure made and the financial statements are materially misstated. Read. What if the examining team is telling the related party disclosures are made, but you assumed they are not made? You look at the word legal case and you say, oh, legal case, I'll write all IS 37. You're not even reading what the examining team is telling about the legal case. Is the legal case successful, unsuccessful? What is the lawyer telling you about it? But you look at the word legal case and you write everything. You look at the word government grant and you write the entire IS 20. That is not case specific at all. Right? Is this clear to all of you? Are you getting some sense out of this case specific answers? So how many times we just look at a term and we produce everything? Because we are in a fear factor in exam paper that whatever I've learned in the last 2 months should not go waste. Whatever I've learned, I'll just dump it on my paper. Why? Useless. So please ensure you develop a strategy of writing a case-specific answers. You have 11 papers on hand. You have another 25, 26 days to go. And I hope you can implement it. Next, develop your point well. This is something very important. When you're writing an answer, and I just told you, stop idealizing the examining team answer, then what is the good length of an answer? What is the length which can satisfy you that I have written sufficient, I've written adequate? Is your content adequate? Is your content sufficient? Is your content sufficient to impress the marker? Well-developed point. What are exam techniques for a well-developed point? First of all, a well-developed point should be a point from the case study. Number one, definitely. Just 1 second. Well-developed, well-explained point. What are you looking for? Well-developed point vary topic by topic. Let's take some examples to illustrate it. Audit risk and risk of material misstatement. If I'm writing an audit risk, my first sentence could be whether this is material or not, because I've calculated my materiality threshold above. So I will say, okay, this is material as per the threshold above or not, or my first sentence. My second sentence would be to discuss the underlying accounting treatment, what is wrong in the accounting treatment, and what is the risk in that accounting treatment? Like, is management recognizing something wrongly, or is management classifying something wrongly? Is the management presenting something wrongly? Is the management disclosing something wrongly? So I'll discuss about the issue, the accounting problem, what is wrong in the accounting problem in my sentence number 2. And then I'll justify that because of the wrong accounting treatment, what is being under or overstated. So probably a well-developed audit risk or a risk operational misstatement could be 4 sentences long. But if the accounting treatment is a bit complex, bit challenging, bit lengthy, one audit risk might even touch 6 sentences even. It depends upon which accounting treatment are we writing upon. So 3 to 4 to maximum 6 or 7 sentences could be one good definition of an audit risk or risk of material misstatement. Most of the audit risk finishes between 4 to 5 sentences. Business risk can just be 3, max 4. Because in a business risk, you need to pick up from the case, the situation giving rise to a business risk. You need to explain that what will go wrong. What is the implication of the risk you have identified from the case on the business objective? What business objectives will be affected because of the risk? So the business risk is a statement you picked from the case. You elaborated upon that statement. You explained upon that statement that what may go wrong because of this and how will it impact the business. So what may go wrong is like one sentence, and how will it impact the business? One sentence. So maximum every business risk is 3 sentences. If it is a very productive or business risk within the case study, might touch 4 sentences. A sentence is where you put a full stop, right? Implication for the audit report. A lot of times the student says, this will result in a qualified opinion. That's just one sentence. You need to develop. You need to first tell that what is the situation? Is there a material misstatement? First tell, is it material? Then tell, yes, it is a misstatement because the management refused to adjust it. Then tell, what is the implication of that misstatement on the financial statement? Because the management is not adjusting it, what is understated and what is overstated. And then finally tell, because it is a material misstatement, the financial statements are materially misstated, the auditor will issue a qualified opinion, followed by a basis of a qualified opinion. And whenever the auditor issue a qualified opinion, the audit report will be modified. Now see, this is like 5 sentences when you're developing an implication for the audit report. The issue, the materiality, the impact on the financial statement, what is under and overstated. Then talking about which opinion, basis of opinion, and because of the opinion, the report will be modified. So this is how you write an answer. Ethical issues. Try to pick up the situation from the case which gives rise to an ethical issue, justify that it is a self-review threat, and then explain why it is a self-review threat. A lot of time the student missed the why. So a threat and why, and then giving a safeguard. So a threat, a why, and a safeguard. That's how you write an ethical issue. So the length will vary, but you need to find a definition of a well-developed point which can impress the marker. And at the end of the day, all this has to be connected with the case. Nothing should be out of the case. That's very important. I hope you're clear with this exam technique. Let's summarize the exam techniques before exam. The summary of the exam techniques before exam, before we move on to on the day of exam. Exam techniques before exam, which is from today up till your day of, up till a day before the exam, sorry. Knowing the changes in question number 1 since September 22, are all of you familiar with this? Please, I need some quick answers now because I'm just moving to the summary phase. Is everyone clear with knowing the changes in question 1? The articles to read, did I recommend it? The articles you should read around knowing the changes since since September 22? Great, thank you. Number 2, practice with examiner report. Is everyone clear what does that mean, practice with examiner report? How many papers are you practicing with examiner report? How many papers are you practicing with examiner reports? 7. And how many colors you need to identify in the examiner reports? Great, 3. Next. Time management. Is everyone clear with time management? The mechanism, how many papers you have to do under time management? How many papers you have to do under time management? All 11. Very good. Next, stop idealizing the examiner answers. Have you got perspective of that? Have you got my justification? Why am I stopping you from idealizing the examiner answer? Is that justification clear and sound to all of you? Great, thank you. Next, case-specific answers. Are you all clear on the case-specific answer? I hope you will try to avoid writing journal stuff in the paper. And lastly, well-developed point. I hope you're clear with the concept of a well-developed point, how you elaborate upon something, how you explain something. A good explanation cannot be one sentence long. A procedure is one sentence long. An action is one sentence long. But a business risk, an audit risk, an ethical issue, a reporting implication cannot be one sentence long. You need to have a well-developed point in place. So this is the summary of which you should focus on before the exam, and I hope you will follow it. Is everyone sound clear, happy with the summary? Is it bringing any positive impact to any one of you taking the live session? Is this summary giving you a positive signal that, yes, this is what I will be planning for the next 25, 26 days? Is it giving a ray of hope? Is it giving an optimism that, yes, AAA is a paper I can pass? Great. Now let's come to something. Even you have applied these exam techniques, you've done 11 papers, you're all prepared, and comes the day of exam. And on the day of exam, everything gets spoiled up because you got panicked. Waste of your resources, waste of your money, waste of all the efforts you did before the day of exam. When you have prepared yourself so well, you have learned the techniques, you've learned the approach, you've learned the grasp, you've learned the techniques, and you're all set to score 75 marks in the AAA paper. What happens on the day of exam? So the day of exam is the most important, right? The 195 minutes on the day of exam is something which counts the most, right? So what are we aiming at? Why are we putting so much efforts, you and me? For what? For the day of exam. Why are you watching this webinar? To get pass on the day of exam. So exam techniques on the day of exam, that one day, that 195 minutes is what you're doing the efforts for. So is that day important? All your efforts at the back of your mind, in the mind, has to come out in an excellent manner on the day of exam. Let's see some of the issues. And there was one question the student asked me that we should be prepared for expect the unexpected on the day of exam. And expect the unexpected. What happens with the student on the day of exam? They just go panic when they see something out of context. Let's see, is there any technique for that? Exam techniques on the day of exam. First of all, be calm. Control your nerves. You should be good at that. Mediate yourself. Mediation. You enter the exam hall, just calm yourself. Control yourself. Imagine, believe you have done the right efforts. You have spent time on 11 papers, on time management, on everything, been guided in the webinar. You have put all the efforts in the last 30, 40, 50 days, and you're all prepared for this day. So be confident, be positive, be optimistic, and enter the exam hall. Calm yourself. The paper you will open will be a new case study and a new challenge. You are reading for the first time. Be prepared for it mentally. You know that 11 papers you have done. The paper you will be getting for June 24 exam will not be from the 11. It will be a new paper. But if you have not done those 11 papers, taking on the new paper on the day of exam will be a far more bigger challenge than after doing those 11 papers. So the paper on the day of exam will be different. The case study will be different. The things will be different. But tell me, the preparation of the 11 papers, will that be helpful or not? The time management, the techniques, there could be certain things which are identical to the 11 papers. The requirements are pretty identical. You know the marking schemes, but you're facing a new case study on the day of exam. Be mentally prepared for it. But you start reading it. You have 24 minutes of reading and planning time for the question number one. You start reading the case study. You start reading the requirements. It's something new for you. Don't get panicked. There could be something in the requirements which you don't know, like requirement C. There is something on climatical risk, and you don't know about it. You have not studied climatical risk. 8 marks. Exam team is asking you to discuss some ethical and professional issues around climatical risk, and you're unaware of it. Leave it. What's so big about it? 8 marks, climatical risk, multiplied by 1.95. How much time is that? Tell me. 1.95 minutes per mark. 8 marks multiplied by 1.95. Quick answers. 8 marks multiplied by 1.95, 16. So 16 minutes. Leave it for the end. In the end, you will have 16 minutes to come back because you're saving your 16 minutes. You're not attempting it. Leave it. Come in the end of the exam and you have 16 minutes remaining. Try to do whatever you can do with that 8 marks. Instead of 0, you might get 1. You might get 1.5. At times, if you don't know something, just sideline it and focus on the remaining paper. I don't know why students don't look at the big picture. Why you don't look at the glass is half full. Why you look at the glass is half empty. Why don't you look at the opportunities? Why you look at the threats? Why don't you look at your strengths? Why do you look at your weaknesses? So if you don't know something for 8 marks, the glass is half full, not half empty. How much marks you know? 92. Why are you spoiling 92 marks paper? Can you still pass from 92% paper? Yes. Are you getting this message? Is this communication clear to all of you? So please be positive. I don't understand that why students are so pessimistic, why students are looking at half the class is empty on the day of exam, why the students are looking at what they don't know on the day of exam. Why are they not looking at what they do know on the day of exam? Because what they do know will be in a significant higher percentage in comparison to what they don't know. But they keep spoiling their mindset with what they don't know. So will that sort of a mediation, will that sort of a motivation message by me in the last 5 minutes will be helpful to you? Will you look at things differently on the day of exam? Be prepared for the challenge, right? It is a strategic level paper. Will examiner be asking you straightforward things in the exam? No. Will the examiner be asking you simple things on the exam? No. Be prepared for the challenge. But uh, you need to imagine that you will only be successful if you take on the challenge. Number 3, you have practiced plenty. Believe in yourself. You have seen lots of requirements in the 11 papers, and you have seen lots of dimensions in the last 11 papers in the case studies. So you will handle it. You will handle it. Don't worry. You will handle it. 11 papers, you have done it. You have seen so many dimensions, so many questions, so many different things in the 11 papers. 11 papers, in every paper, how many questions we have? 3. So 11 multiplied by 3, 33 questions. Those 33 questions, will that not help you with attempting the 3 questions you have in exam? Right? Yes, Atkins, please to watch my first day of the webinar on YouTube for the 11 papers recommended, right? Number 4, follow the techniques, you learned before the big day? I hope you have learned techniques on day 1, day 2, day 3. And ensure each of that is effectively implemented in the percentage of the paper you know, not in the percent of the paper you don't know. I hope you're understanding optimism. I hope you're understanding the glass is half full. I hope you're understanding the big picture. And I hope you're understanding looking at opportunities, not threats. Fifth, stick to time management and keep moving on. This is important. This is what students don't do. Keep moving on. Question number 1, times end. Stop, move on. Leave the question number 1 incomplete. 97.5 minutes end, move on. Any student who keeps moving on when the time ends, you are successful in your upcoming exams. But any student who just keep completing one question and is not moving on even though the time has ended, that's very, very bad. Sixth, if you don't know any requirement or seems challenging at the first go, you don't understand it, leave it and come back to it later. I just given you an example of an 8 marks requirement on climatical risk. Seems challenging or you don't know at the first go. So 8 marks multiplied by 1.95 minutes, approximately 16 minutes. Leave 16 minutes, move on. In the end, when you have 16 minutes remaining, come back to that requirement, do whatever you can do. So at least out of the 8 marks, you can fetch 1 to 2 marks, and those 1 to 2 marks can be lifesaver. Number 7, don't spoil your rest of the paper for something you don't know. Just forget it, just delete it and move on. Number 8, attack on the opportunities you know and leave what you don't know for the last. This is the way you secure yourself. I hope these exam techniques, which are in front of your screen for on the day of exam, would really be beneficial. Have you taken any message out of these 8 exam techniques? How many of you like these 8 exam techniques? How many of you think this is quite realistic and this is what I was looking for, because I really get into the panic mode on the day of exam? But with these 8 techniques, I will ensure that I'll try to do my best in the June 24 exams. Is that clear to all of you? Shiza, I think you asked me a question at the start of the session today, right? Which pertains to something you're looking at for in front of your screen, right? Okay, thank you so much, all of you. Reshma, if you can just drop that question to me on the WhatsApp group, if you have access to that, I will be answering that in the next 24 hours. Any student who have any questions and that's not answered in the webinar, please, you still have an opportunity of putting this on the WhatsApp group. And if anyone can share the link of the WhatsApp group, which is the KKDL global group, where you can interact with me post webinars. Thank you so much, Reshma, for that understanding. Okay, so these are the exam techniques. That was the day 3. I hope you learned some techniques out of the day 3 today in terms of what to do before the exam day and what to do on the exam day. I hope the exam techniques on the exam day is the lifesaver for you. So will you be optimistic? Will you be opportunistic? Will you be looking at glass is half full, not half empty? That's great, right? So the purpose of this webinar was to boost your confidence, right? We talked about approach to success, the timetable. We talked about the grasp to success, the syllabus coverage. We talked about the exam techniques. Samuel, yes, you talked to me yesterday on this, that should we start with section A or B? I always recommend my students to start with A because you have a fresh energy. And you know, question 1 is very exhaustive. 97.5 minutes. So with your fresh mind, I think you should attack the question 1 with your 100% energy. Because if you come later to question number 1 after attempting the section B, you will be exhaustive. You might have seen something unexpected in the paper, which might be disturbing you at the back of the mind. So you will not be putting the best of your ability to the question number 1. Right? Is that clear to you, Samuel? Okay, the one last question I'm taking for the session today is from Memoriti. In question number 1, we are required to provide a conclusion after audit risk and ROM. Yes. What happens if we have another evaluate or discuss question? Yes, we can give another conclusion. So one conclusion will come after the audit risk, definitely. One conclusion can even come after the ethical issues. So you can have 2 conclusions, not to worry about. Okay, that's great. So I hope you liked the webinar day 3 today, and I'll be back with the day 4 webinar, which focus on inspiration, because that's the last thing you need ahead of your exam. You need someone other than me to inspire you, who has already passed the March 24 exam. You need a lot of success stories coming your way tomorrow, where the students will interact with you alongside me, and I'll be asking questions, you will be asking questions, and the students who got great marks in the last exam sitting March 24 will guide you what best you can do. Like on the day of exam, if you don't know something, how to plan question number 1, should we do question number 1 first or question number 2 first? You can ask all these things to students who've got on average 70 plus marks in the AAA paper in March 24 exams. So I hope you will largely benefit from that session tomorrow, which is about inspiration to success. So thank you so very much for coming today into the day 3 webinar, and we'll be focused on day 4 tomorrow, the final day at inspiration to success. You're all welcome, and many thanks. Wish you all the best of luck, best wishes for your exams. Keep focusing on your study plans. Take care. Have a nice day. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.